Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony and watched the stars bend around his ship. The faster-than-light drive hummed quietly beneath his feet. After 50 years of trying, humans had finally cracked the secret of traveling between stars. Now they were about to meet their neighbors for the first time. "Captain, we're getting close to Nexus Prime," said his navigator, Lieutenant Bo-Ram Lee. She looked nervous. Everyone on the ship looked nervous. This was the biggest moment in human history. Hyunwoo straightened his dark blue uniform. Earth's leaders had spent months deciding what humans should wear for first contact. They wanted to look professional but not threatening. The final choice was simple. Clean uniforms in Earth's ocean blue with small badges showing a white dove carrying an olive branch. "All stations report," Hyunwoo called out. "Engines running smooth," said Engineer Tae-ho Kim from his station. "Communications ready," added Operator Soo-jin Park. "Diplomatic team is prepared," came the voice of Ambassador So-young Kim through the intercom. She was in the cargo bay, making sure all of Earth's gifts were properly arranged. Hyunwoo nodded. Those gifts had taken years to select. Earth was bringing art, music, scientific data, and samples of human culture. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans were peaceful and creative. The cargo bay held paintings from every continent, recordings of symphonies and folk songs, mathematical proofs, and even recipes for different types of food. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Nexus Prime appeared before them. Hyunwoo had seen pictures, but the real thing took his breath away. The planet was huge, covered in silver cities that sparkled like jewels. Massive space stations orbited around it, each one bigger than any structure humans had ever built. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved between the stations like schools of metal fish. "Incoming transmission," Soo-jin reported. "It's from the Galactic Confederation." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music played on glass bells. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Station 7. You will follow the marked flight path exactly. Any deviation will result in immediate destruction." The transmission ended before Hyunwoo could respond. "Well," he said quietly. "That was friendly." Bo-Ram checked her instruments. "Station 7 is not the best one, Captain. It's small and old. Most of the ships there look like cargo haulers." Hyunwoo wasn't surprised. Earth's messages to the Confederation had been polite, but the responses had been cold. The aliens seemed to think humans were just another primitive species asking for permission to join the galactic community. The Harmony followed the flight path to Station 7. As they got closer, Hyunwoo could see that Bo-Ram was right. The station was tiny compared to the others, and it looked like it needed repairs. Paint was peeling from its hull, and several of its lights were broken. "They're putting us in the cheap seats," Tae-ho muttered. "That's fine," Hyunwoo said. "We're here to make friends, not to demand special treatment." The docking went smoothly. Once they were attached to the station, Ambassador So-young Kim joined Hyunwoo on the bridge. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She had spent her whole career working with different countries on Earth, helping them solve problems without fighting. "Are you ready for this?" Hyunwoo asked her. "So," Young smiled. "I've been ready my whole life. This is what I was born to do." They walked to the airlock together. Behind them came Dr. Jin-ho Lee, Earth's best expert on alien life. He was young for such an important job, but his mind was sharp, and he noticed things other people missed. He carried a tablet with everything humans knew about the three major alien powers. The airlock opened, and they stepped into a corridor that looked like it was built for giants. The ceiling was high above their heads, and the walls were covered in symbols they couldn't read. The air smelled strange, not bad, just different. Like metal and electricity and something that reminded Jin-ho of flowers. A group of aliens waited for them. The first was another crystal being like the one they had seen on screen. It was tall and thin with sharp edges that looked dangerous. Next to it stood something that looked like a giant insect walking on two legs. Its skin was dark and shiny, and it had 4 arms instead of 2. The third alien was the strangest. It looked like a cloud of glowing gas that had somehow learned to hold a shape like a person. "I am Zethara of the Velthari Empire," said the crystal being. Its voice was beautiful, but cold. "This is Thrax of the Krex Dominion and Phoenix of the Flux Collective. We are here to evaluate your species." So Young stepped forward and bowed politely. "I am Ambassador So Young Kim of Earth. It is an honor to meet you. We come in peace and hope to learn from your great civilizations." Zethara looked at her like she was studying an interesting but unimportant rock. "You may present your offerings." The humans had hoped for more ceremony, maybe some kind of welcome speech, but they followed the aliens to a large room. Hyunwoo's crew brought in Earth's gifts and arranged them carefully on tables. So Young explained each item with enthusiasm. "This painting shows our sunrise over mountains," she said, pointing to a beautiful landscape. "And this music represents how humans express joy and sadness through sound." The aliens barely looked at anything. Zethara examined a small sculpture for a few seconds, then moved on. Thrax picked up a book of poetry, but its 4 eyes showed no interest. Phoenix floated over a display of scientific equations without stopping. Jinho watched their body language carefully. He had studied every piece of information Earth had about these species. Zethara's crystal segments were arranged in a pattern that meant boredom. Thrax's antennae were pointing down, which showed dismissal in Krex culture. Phoenix was maintaining the minimum polite distance, meaning it considered the humans beneath notice. "Very primitive," Zethara finally said. "Your art shows no understanding of quantum beauty. Your science is centuries behind our achievements. Your music lacks harmonic complexity." "We are still learning," So Young replied calmly. "We hope to grow through friendship with more advanced species like yourselves." Thrax made a sound like clicking metal. "Inefficient biological units. Your emotional responses waste energy. Your individual thinking creates chaos instead of order." The Krex, Jinho knew, lived in a hive mind where everyone shared the same thoughts. They couldn't understand why humans wanted to think for themselves. Phoenix spoke last. Its voice sounded like wind through caves. "Your energy patterns are simple. You exist only in basic matter. You cannot transcend physical limitations." So Young kept smiling, but Hyunwoo could see it was getting harder for her. "We believe diversity makes the galaxy stronger. Perhaps our different perspectives could help solve problems in new ways." "Unlikely," Zethara said. "Your species will be assigned Sector 2847 on the Galactic Rim. It contains 17 star systems. With basic resources, you will stay within these boundaries. Any attempt to expand will be discouraged." Hyunwoo felt his jaw clench. Sector 2847 was barely a footnote on galactic maps. It was far from any major trade routes or important planets. The aliens were essentially giving humans a cosmic reservation and telling them to stay there. "We accept your generous gift," So Young said, though everyone could hear the strain in her voice. "We hope to prove ourselves worthy neighbors in time." "Time will tell," Thrax replied. "Your survival is not guaranteed. The galaxy is dangerous for weak species." The meeting ended without ceremony. The aliens simply turned and walked away, leaving the humans standing alone with their gifts. No one had taken anything. The paintings, music, and scientific data that represented the best of human achievement sat abandoned on the tables. "Well," So Young said quietly, "that could have gone better." Jinho was making notes on his tablet. "They're not just uninterested," he said. "They actively look down on us. To them, we're like children playing with toys." Hyunwoo picked up one of the paintings, a beautiful image of Earth's blue oceans and white clouds. "Maybe they're right. Maybe we are primitive compared to them." "No," So Young said firmly. "Different doesn't mean less than. They've forgotten something important." "What's that?" "That everyone starts somewhere. They were young once, too, and they've grown so powerful that they've stopped seeing the value in new ideas." She looked around at their rejected gifts. "Let's pack these up and take them home. Someday, they might change their minds." As they loaded the gifts back onto the Harmony, Hyunwoo thought about the aliens' words. Sector 2847 was small and far from everything important. The galaxy's 3 great powers had made it clear that humans were not welcome in their clubs. Earth would have to build its future on the edges of civilized space, far from the centers of power. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe being underestimated had its advantages. The Harmony undocked from Station 7 and began its long journey home. Behind them, Nexus Prime continued its ancient dance around its star, surrounded by the ships and stations of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. None of them noticed the small human ship leaving. None of them thought the meeting had been important enough to remember. To them, humans were just another minor species asking for scraps from. 6 months had passed since the meeting at Nexus Prime. Commander Taemin Choi sat in his office aboard the defense station orbiting New Sol, Earth's first colony beyond the solar system. Reports covered his desk, and none of them were good. News. Another incident in the Kepler system, his aide, Lieutenant Hyo-Jin Park, said, as she placed yet another file in front of him. Velthari ships again. They claim their navigation systems malfunctioned. Taemin rubbed his tired eyes. This was the 15th malfunction this month. Velthari crystal ships kept appearing in human space, always with the same excuse. Their advanced navigation had somehow broken down right at the edge of human territory. They would apologize politely, scan everything in sight, then leave. What? Did they scan this time? He asked. Defense positions around the mining station. Same as always. Taemin stood and walked to the window. New Sol hung below him like a blue and green jewel. 2 million humans had made this world their home, building cities that looked like smaller versions of Earth's capitals. It was beautiful, but it was also vulnerable. His communication device buzzed. Commander Choi, we have Governor Yang on the line. Put her through. Governor Eun-ji Yang appeared on his screen. She looked as tired as he felt. Her usually neat black hair was messy, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Taemin, we need to talk, she said. The situation is getting worse. I'm on my way down. An hour later, Taemin sat in Governor Yang's office in New Seoul's capital city. Through the windows, he could see normal people living normal lives. Children played in parks while their parents went to work. Nobody seemed to notice the alien ships that kept appearing in their sky. Tell me what's happening, Taemin said. Eun-ji activated a holographic display. It started small. Alien traders began demanding protection fees from our merchant ships. When we refused, pirates started attacking our supply convoys. The Confederation patrol ships that are supposed to protect this sector are never around when we need them. Red dots appeared on the display, showing attack locations. There were dozens of them, all along the trade routes between human colonies. The Kreks are worse, Eun-ji continued. They've built what they call research stations in 3 of our systems. The stations are clearly military, but they claim they're studying primitive biological development. More dots appeared, these ones, in blue. Taemin could see the pattern. The Kreks stations were positioned to monitor all traffic between human worlds. And the Flux Collective? He asked. They're interfering with our communications. Every time we try to send important messages between colonies, we get static and delays. They say it's natural energy fluctuations, but it only happens when we're discussing defense or trade agreements. Taemin studied the display. They're testing us, seeing how much we'll take before we fight back. That's what I think, too. The question is, what do we do about it? Before Taemin could answer, an alarm sounded. Both of their communication devices buzzed with an emergency message. This is Captain Sang-Ho Kim of the merchant vessel Lucky Star, came a crackling voice. We're under attack by unknown vessels. Our cargo escort is... Oh no, they got Lieutenant Park. We need help. Anyone, please help us. The transmission cut to static. Taemin was already moving toward the door. Where were they? The Tau Ceti run, Eun-ji said, checking her computer. But our nearest patrol ship is 6 hours away. 6 hours, Taemin repeated. They'll be dead, or captured by then. He was right. By the time human ships reached the attack site, they found only debris and escape pods. Captain Sang-Ho Kim was dead, along with 3 of his crew. The pirates had taken the cargo and disappeared into the asteroid fields where Confederation patrols never went. The funeral was held 3 days later. Taemin stood with the other mourners as Captain Kim's daughter, Mira, spoke about her father. She was young, maybe 25, with fierce eyes that reminded him of soldiers he had known. My father was a good man, Mira said. He worked hard to help build our new world. He didn't deserve to die protecting a shipment of farming equipment. From criminals, her voice got louder. And he wouldn't have died if the Confederation actually protected us like they promised. After the service, Mira approached Tai Min. "Commander, when are we going to fight back?" "We're working through diplomatic channels," he replied, though the words felt hollow. "Diplomatic channels," she repeated. "My father is dead because of diplomatic channels. How many more people have to die before we do something real?" Tai Min didn't have a good answer. That evening, he attended an emergency council meeting via hologram. Leaders from all the human colonies appeared around the virtual table, along with Earth's top officials. Admiral Wu Jin Nam represented the Human Defense Forces, while President Haye Jin Quan spoke for Earth's government. "The situation is becoming impossible," said Governor Chen from the Proxima colony. "My people are scared. Trade is down 60% because merchants won't risk the pirate attacks." "It's not just pirates," added Administrator Li from the industrial world of New Busan. "Krek's ships are demanding to inspect our factories. They claim they're checking for dangerous technology, but they're really stealing our industrial secrets." Admiral Nam leaned forward. "I have 12 ships ready to deploy. Give me the word, and we can clear out those pirate bases in a week." "Absolutely not," President Quan said firmly. "We cannot be the ones to start a shooting war. We're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Nam asked. "That we just sit here and let them pick us apart piece by piece?" "We continue working through proper channels. I'm sending another formal complaint to the Confederation Council. Ambassador So Young Kim is preparing a detailed report of all the violations of our territorial rights." Governor Yang spoke up from New Seoul. "With respect, Madam President, formal complaints aren't stopping the attacks. My people are dying." "I understand your frustration," President Quan replied. "But we must show the galaxy that we're better than their primitive power games. We're not barbarians who solve problems with violence." The meeting went on for hours, but nothing was decided. The civilians wanted protection, the military wanted to fight, and the politicians wanted to avoid war. In the end, they agreed to send more diplomatic protests and ask for better Confederation patrols. After the meeting ended, Tai Min stayed in his office late into the night. Through his window, he could see the lights of New Seoul below. Those lights represented families, children, hopes for the future. His job was to protect all of that. His computer chimed with a new intelligence report. Dr. Young-Soo Park, Earth's best scientist, had been studying the alien ships that kept visiting human space. The report made for disturbing reading. Krek's monitoring station in the Vega system shows weapons signatures consistent with planetary bombardment capability, the report stated. Station positioned above New Seoul has similar energy readings. Estimated time to sterilize planet surface, 4 hours. Tai Min felt cold. The Kreks weren't just watching humans. They had enough firepower to wipe out entire colonies, and they were positioning those weapons carefully. The next morning brought more bad news. A Velthari trade ship had landed on the agricultural world of New Jeju without permission. When human officials asked them to leave, the aliens laughed and said they were collecting samples of primitive farming techniques. They stayed for 3 days, scanning everything and taking detailed recordings of human technology. A flux collective energy being had appeared in the middle of New Seoul's capital, claiming to be studying human emotional responses to authority. It spent hours floating through government buildings, reading classified documents with its energy senses, before finally leaving when it got bored. Each incident was small by itself. Each one had a reasonable excuse, but together they painted a clear picture. The 3 great powers were treating human space like their personal playground, taking whatever they wanted and ignoring human sovereignty completely. The worst part was that humans couldn't do anything about it. Every complaint to the Confederation was answered with polite apologies and promises to investigate the matter. But the investigations never found any wrongdoing, and the incidents kept happening. Late that night, Tai Min received a coded message from Admiral Nam. It was short and to the point. "We're not as helpless as they think. Preparations are being made. Stay ready." Tai Min deleted the message immediately, but he felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. Maybe the galaxy's greatest powers had made a mistake. Maybe they had pushed too hard and assumed too much. Maybe they were about to learn that there was a difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight. On the other side of the galaxy, alien intelligence officers were reading human communications and laughing. The crystalline spy master Quindar shared the intercepted messages with his colleagues. "Look at this," he said, his crystal body glowing with amusement. "The humans are working through diplomatic channels. They file complaints, like children tattling to their parents." His Krex counterpart, tactical coordinator Jexra, clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. "Our psychological profiles were correct. Humans are emotionally driven but physically weak. They use words when they should use weapons. They make excellent subjects for study," added Flux Overlord Phoenix, its energy form P. Deep beneath the mountains of Earth's southern continent, General Kyung-Ho Shin walked through corridors that officially did not exist. The facility was called Research Station Alpha on all public records, listed as a place where scientists studied new farming techniques. In reality, it was the heart of Project Silent Storm, humanity's most classified program. "General, the latest prototype is ready for testing," said Dr. Hanul Jeon as she met him at the entrance to Laboratory 7. She was young for such an important job, but her mind worked in ways that amazed even veteran scientists. Her specialty was making weapons that shouldn't be possible. They walked past guards who wore no insignia and carried no identification. These soldiers had volunteered for a mission they couldn't talk about, protecting secrets they couldn't share. The laboratory, beyond the security checkpoint, looked like something from a science fiction movie. "Show me what you've built," General Shin said. Dr. Jeon led him to a workbench where something that looked like a metal egg sat under bright lights. It was about the size of a football and covered in symbols that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. "We call it a quantum disruptor," she explained. "It works by breaking the bonds between atoms at the subatomic level. When it hits a target, the matter simply stops being matter." General Shin picked up the device. It felt warm to the touch. "Range? 50 kilometers in vacuum. The effect spreads in a sphere about 10 meters wide. Anything inside that sphere becomes basic particles floating in space." "And the aliens?" "We've tested it on samples of Velthari, crystal, Krex bioarmor, and captured flux energy. All three break down completely. Their advanced materials are actually more vulnerable than simple human steel because they depend on complex quantum structures." General Shin nodded and set the weapon back down. "How many can you make?" "We have production facilities on 12 worlds now. Each one is disguised as something else: mining equipment factories, computer component plants, agricultural processing centers. We can produce about 50 units per day across all facilities." They moved to the next workstation, where engineer Dongwoo Lee was adjusting something that looked like a ship's engine but hummed with unfamiliar energy. Dongwoo had been working on stealth technology since before first contact with the aliens. "General, we've solved the detection problem," Dongwoo said without looking up from his work. "This stealth field doesn't just block sensors. It makes objects exist in a slightly different quantum state. Ships equipped with this technology become invisible to every form of alien detection we've encountered." "How many ships?" "We've secretly modified 200 vessels so far. Cargo haulers, mining ships, even some passenger transports. To outside observers, they look exactly the same, but when we activate the stealth systems, they disappear from all sensors." General Shin smiled for the first time in months. "The aliens think they're watching us, but they're only seeing what we want them to see." In another part of the facility, Captain Ji-Hoon Kang was preparing for the most important test flight in human history. The ship waiting for him in the hidden hangar looked like a standard cargo vessel from the outside, but inside it contained technology that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. "All systems check green," reported his navigator lieutenant, Sujin Bei. "Quantum disruptors loaded and ready. Stealth field generators at full power. Engines modified for silent running." The ship was called the UES Whisper, though that name appeared on no official records. It was the first of what would become humanity's secret fleet. Vessels that looked ordinary but carried enough firepower to destroy alien dreadnoughts. "Take us out," Captain Kang ordered. The Whisper lifted off from the underground hangar and climbed toward space. Within minutes, they were beyond Earth's atmosphere and heading for the test zone in the outer solar system. Behind them, alien monitoring stations detected nothing unusual. As far as they knew, no ships had launched from Earth that day. "Stealth field is working perfectly," Lieutenant Bay reported. "We're invisible to all forms of detection. They flew to an area where humans had secretly placed target drones disguised as asteroids. Each drone was built to match the specifications of alien warships. Crystal hulls like the Velthari used, bio-armor like the Krex, and energy fields like the Flux Collective. Fire one disruptor at the crystal target," Captain Kang ordered. The weapon launched silently, leaving no energy trail. When it hit the target drone, there was no explosion or flash of light. The crystals simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but empty space where solid matter had been a moment before. "Perfect hit," Lieutenant Bay said quietly. "Target completely destroyed. They tested all their weapons that day. Quantum disruptors that could eliminate any matter. Energy scramblers that disrupted alien power systems. Harmonic weapons designed specifically to destabilize flux entities. Every test was successful. Back on Earth, different preparations were taking place in the intelligence community. Specialist Sunmi Cho sat in a room full of computers, surrounded by screens showing alien communication networks. She had spent 2 years learning how to crack alien encryption systems. "We're inside their command networks now," she reported to her supervisor, Colonel Min Seok Jung. "The aliens never changed their security codes because they assumed humans couldn't break them. We can read their military communications in real time. The intelligence that Sunmi gathered was disturbing. The 3 alien powers were planning something they called final integration, a plan to completely absorb human space into their own territories. The Velthari wanted to use human worlds as mining colonies. The Krex planned to study human biology by putting entire populations in laboratory conditions. The Flux Collective saw humans as interesting energy patterns to be absorbed and preserved. They're not just underestimating us," Sunmi said, as she read through more intercepted messages. "They literally don't consider us a threat. Their military planning assumes zero resistance from human forces." "What about their defenses?" Colonel Jung asked. "Almost non-existent in the areas closest to human space. They've moved most of their fleets to the Galactic Center where they compete with each other for resources. The systems they use to threaten us are protected by skeleton crews and old equipment. This intelligence was passed along to Admiral Wu Jin, Nam, who was quietly building humanity's real navy. While alien spies watched obvious military shipyards, humans were assembling warships in hidden facilities throughout their territory. We have 47 combat vessels ready for deployment," Admiral Nam reported to the Secret Defense Council. "Each one appears to be a civilian ship on all external sensors, but they carry enough firepower to eliminate entire alien fleets. The hidden ships were crewed by volunteers who had signed papers stating they were taking jobs in remote mining operations. Their families believed they were working on asteroid processing stations. In reality, they were training for the most important battles in human history." Ambassador Jaewon Park continued attending Confederation meetings, playing his role as the polite human representative. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every violation of human rights was carefully documented. He smiled and nodded while alien leaders bragged about their plans for human territory. "The biological specimens on the rim worlds show interesting stress responses," Krex Hive leader Thrax said during one meeting. "We look forward to conducting more detailed studies once full integration begins. Integration is scheduled to begin in 6 months, added Velthari war leader Corian. Our mining operations will require extensive human labor. The survivors should provide adequate workforce." Ambassador Park kept his expression neutral. "The survivors? Integration always involves some population reduction," Flux Overlord Phoenix explained. "Biological entities that cannot adapt to new conditions must be recycled." That night, Ambassador Park sent a coded message to Earth. "They're planning genocide. Integration means the complete destruction of human civilization." Through the key, message reached President Hyejin Kwan at 3 in the morning. She read it twice, then called an emergency meeting of the Real Defense Council. Not the public one that still believed in diplomatic solutions, but the secret group that had been preparing for war. "How long do we have?" she asked General Shin. "They plan to start in 6 months, but our intelligence suggests they could begin military operations at any time if they suspect we're preparing to resist. Are we ready?" "We will be. Another month of preparation, and we'll have enough ships and weapons to eliminate their forward positions. But we need them to believe we're still helpless until we're ready to strike." Dr. Han Yul Jeon spoke up from her seat at the table. General, I've been analyzing alien psychology based on our intelligence reports. They don't just underestimate us, they literally cannot imagine us as a threat. Their entire worldview is based on technological superiority, meaning inevitable victory. Explain. They've ruled the galaxy for so long that they've forgotten what it's like to face real opposition. When they conquered other species, those species fought with primitive weapons and lost quickly. They think all warfare follows the same pattern. Advanced technology defeats primitive technology. President Kwan leaned forward. You're saying they can't adapt to unexpected threats? Exactly. Their military doctrine. Dr. Minho Yoon was having breakfast with his family when the attack began. His wife, Dr. Ara Yoon, was reviewing research notes while their 8-year-old daughter, Sora, practiced reading from her tablet. Their son, Yoon Soo, who was 12, was complaining about his mathematics homework. It was a normal morning on Research Station Serenity, humanity's most advanced scientific facility. The station orbited a gas giant in the Kepler system, where 300 of Earth's best scientists studied everything from alien technology to theoretical physics. Dr. Minho led the Energy Research Division, working to understand how flux collective beings manipulated matter and energy. Dad, why do aliens use energy differently than we do? Sora asked, looking up from her reading tablet. Because they evolved differently than humans, Dr. Minho explained patiently. The flux beings started as pure energy, so they think about power in ways we're still learning to understand. Will I be able to study aliens when I grow up? If you want to, sweetheart. The galaxy is full of interesting things to discover. He had no idea that this would be the last normal conversation they would ever have. The attack came without warning. One moment, Serenity was peacefully orbiting the gas giant while its scientists worked on projects that could benefit all of humanity. The next moment, energy beams from Flux Collective ships began tearing through the station's hull. Emergency alarms screamed through every corridor. Dr. Minho grabbed his family and ran toward the evacuation pods, but the attacks were too fast and too coordinated. The aliens weren't trying to capture the station or steal its research. They were trying to destroy everything. In the station's control center, Commander Yuna Lee tried to understand what was happening. Where did they come from? She shouted. Over the noise of explosions. They just appeared, reported Lieutenant Jae-hyun Park. No warning, no communication, no demands. They started firing immediately. Commander Lee opened communication channels to the attacking ships. Flux vessels, this is Research Station Serenity. We are a peaceful scientific facility. Please explain your hostile actions. The response came from Flux Overlord Phoenix himself, his energy form glowing with what humans had learned to recognize as anger. Human facility. You have been conducting unauthorized research into flux energy manipulation. Such presumption requires correction. We're studying energy physics with permission from the Galactic Confederation, Commander Lee replied. Our research is completely legal. Permission is irrelevant. Your species lacks the mental capacity to safely handle advanced energy concepts. Your continued experiments represent a threat to galactic stability. More energy beams struck the station. Entire sections began losing atmosphere. Dr. Minho and his family were trapped in a corridor that was rapidly decompressing. He used his body to shield his children from flying debris while his wife tried to seal the hull breaches with emergency foam. The evacuation pods are this way, Dr. Ara shouted, pointing toward a junction that led to the station's escape systems. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and sparking electrical systems. Other families were doing the same thing, scientists and their loved ones trying to reach safety while the station died around them. Dr. Minho saw colleagues he had worked with for years, helping each other toward the evacuation bays. But the flux ships weren't allowing anyone to escape. Energy beams targeted the evacuation pods as they launched, destroying them one by one. The aliens were making sure there would be no survivors to tell what had happened. Dr. Minho's family almost made it. They were 10 meters from an evacuation pod when another energy beam punched through the station's hull. The explosion threw them against the walls with tremendous force. Dr. Ara was killed instantly. Sora died moments later, her small body unable to survive the trauma. Dr. Minho held his son as Hyun-Soo's breathing became weaker. "Dad," the boy whispered, "why are they doing this to us?" I don't know, son. I don't know. Hyun-soo died in his father's arms 3 minutes before the rescue ships arrived. The attack lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, Research Station Serenity was a broken hulk floating in space. Of the 847 people who had lived and worked there, only 13 survived. Dr. Minho was one of them, found unconscious in the wreckage by the rescue teams. The galaxy learned about the attack through official Flux Collective communications. Overlord Phoenix announced that the destruction of Serenity was a necessary demonstration of the consequences of unauthorized research into advanced energy manipulation. He stated that humans had been warned repeatedly about exceeding their technological limitations. The Galactic Confederation's response was swift and clear. They supported the Flux Collective's actions. According to the official statement, humans had indeed been conducting research beyond their approved technological level. The destruction of Serenity was regrettable, but justified under Confederation law. On Earth, President Hyejin Kwan watched the rescue ships return with the survivors. 13 people out of 847. 13 people who had lost everything because they tried to understand how the universe worked. Dr. Minho was brought to the best medical facility on Earth. His physical injuries would heal, but the emotional damage was beyond repair. When President Kwan visited him in the hospital, she found a broken man staring at pictures of his dead family. "They didn't even give us a chance to surrender," he said quietly. "They didn't want our research or our station. They just wanted us dead. Dr. Yoon, I'm so sorry for your loss. My daughter asked me about aliens just that morning. She wanted to study them when she grew up." His voice was hollow. "I told her the galaxy was full of interesting things to discover." President Kwan sat beside his bed. "Dr. Yoon, I need to ask you about the attack. Anything you remember could help us understand what happened." Dr. Minho turned away from the pictures. "They came to kill us, Madam President. Not to capture us. Not to stop our research. Not to send a message. They came to murder every human being on that station, including the children." "You're certain?" "They targeted the evacuation pods. They made sure no one could escape. This wasn't about stopping unauthorized research. This was about showing the galaxy what happens to humans who dare to learn." That evening, President Kwan called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every human world appeared on screens around the conference table. For the first time, she was speaking to both the public council and the secret military leadership. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," she began, her voice calm but carrying an undertone that made everyone listen carefully. "Today, the Flux Collective attacked and destroyed Research Station Serenity. 834 innocent people died, including children who were simply living with their parents while those parents worked to expand human knowledge." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "This attack was not about unauthorized research, as the aliens claim. Our scientists were studying basic energy physics with full Confederation approval. This attack was about reminding humans of our place in the galactic order." Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. "For 2 years since first contact, we have shown nothing but courtesy to our galactic neighbors. We have overlooked insults, forgiven trespasses, and turned the other cheek to aggression. We have been patient, diplomatic, and peaceful, because we believed that civilized beings could resolve their differences through dialogue." She stood up from her chair. "We have filed formal complaints about territorial violations. We have accepted insults to our intelligence and our achievements. We have allowed alien powers to treat human space as their personal playground. We have done all of this because we believed that patience and understanding would eventually lead to mutual respect." Her voice grew colder. "Today, children died because their parents tried to understand how energy works. Families were murdered because they lived on a station dedicated to peaceful research. 834 human beings were killed to send a message about knowing our place." She looked directly into the camera, and everyone watching knew that something fundamental had changed. That courtesy is now officially withdrawn. Across human space, people who had been arguing for diplomatic solutions fell silent. The massacre at Serenity had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The aliens had killed children to make a point about human inferiority. Admiral Sung-Hwan Lim opened a sealed envelope that had been sitting in his safe for 6 months. Inside were orders that began with the words, Operation Silent Storm is now active. Within hours, coded signals went out to secret facilities throughout human territory. Captain Hee-Jin Bei received her activation signal while commanding what appeared to be a simple cargo vessel. But when she entered her authorization codes, hidden systems throughout the ship came online. The cargo hauler transformed into a dreadnought bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We are no longer the merchant vessel Lucky Break. We are now the UES Retribution, and we have work to do." Similar transformations were happening on 200 ships throughout human space. Cargo vessels became battleships. Mining equipment became weapons platforms. Cyan, Admiral Chulsu Park, stood on the bridge of the UES Final Warning and watched 17 star systems appear on his tactical display. Each system contained major alien military installations. Each system was about to learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. "All fleet commanders report ready," announced Communications Officer Dae-Yun Lee. "Operation Silent Storm is green across all vectors." The human fleet had appeared from nowhere. Ships that had been invisible to alien sensors for months suddenly materialized around key strategic targets throughout the galaxy. What had seemed like empty space was now filled with vessels bristling with weapons the aliens had never seen before. "Begin the demonstration," Admiral Park ordered quietly. The first target was the Velthari stronghold at Crimson Nebula, a massive crystalline fortress that had protected the heart of their empire for over 1,000 years. Captain Yeon-Soo Kim commanded the attack force, 12 ships that had been masquerading as mineral survey vessels for the past 6 months. "Target acquired," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Tae-Yang Choi. "Crystalline dreadnought formation bearing 27 Mark IV. Count shows 36 capital ships." The Velthari had no idea they were being targeted. Their sensors showed empty space where the human fleet waited. Empress Zethara was conducting a routine inspection of the fortress when the attack began. "Fire!" Captain Kim ordered. Quantum disruptors launched silently through space when they struck the crystalline ships. There were no explosions or flashes of light. The alien vessels simply ceased to exist, their complex crystal matrices breaking down at the atomic level. In 12 seconds, 36 dreadnoughts became clouds of basic particles floating in space. "Impossible," Empress Zethara transmitted. "On emergency frequencies. Our sensors detect no attacking vessels. How are we under fire?" Her answer came when the human ships dropped their stealth fields and appeared like ghosts materializing from the void. The Velthari fortress opened fire with every weapon they had, but their energy beams passed harmlessly through human defensive screens. "Return fire," Captain Kim said calmly. More quantum disruptors struck the fortress itself. The crystalline structure that had stood for millennia began to crumble as its atomic bonds dissolved. Empress Zethara's final transmission was a terrified whisper that would be recorded in galactic history. They were supposed to be weak. The Krex Hive worlds were next. Commander Hoseok Jung led the assault on their bio-ship fleets with weapons, specifically designed to bypass organic armor. The insectoid species had built their entire military around the idea that living ships could adapt to any threat. They were wrong. "Harmonic resonators locked on target," reported weapons specialist Jinwoo Park. "Bioarmor frequencies mapped and loaded." The Krex fleet was massive, over 200 bioships that looked like giant insects swimming through space. Each ship was a living creature, capable of healing damage and adapting to enemy weapons. They had never been defeated in direct combat, until today. The harmonic weapons created vibrations that the bioships couldn't adapt to because the frequencies attacked their nervous systems directly. The living vessels writhed in space like dying animals as their own biology turned against them. Within minutes, the entire fleet was paralyzed. Hive Mind Thrax's last coherent thought echoed through the dying fleet. How can they defeat adaptation itself? The answer was simple. Humans had studied Krex biology for months, learning exactly how their organisms functioned. While the aliens thought humans were too primitive to understand advanced biological systems, human scientists had been designing weapons that turned the Krex's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. But the most devastating attack was saved for the Flux Collective. Dr. Su-Jin Lim had spent 6 months developing harmonic disruptors specifically designed to destabilize energy beings. Now, Admiral Sungmin Kang was preparing to test those weapons against beings who had considered themselves untouchable. Flux entities detected throughout the Vega system, reported scanner operator Hee-Young Kim. Count shows 47 energy beings ranging from minor constructs to overlord-class entities. The Flux Collective had never faced a physical threat they couldn't simply phase through or absorb. Their energy-based existence made them immune to conventional weapons. They had destroyed Research Station Serenity, confident that humans could never retaliate against beings of pure energy. They were about to learn that human science had found ways to hurt things that shouldn't be able to feel pain. "Activate harmonic disruptors," Admiral Kang ordered. The weapons created quantum interference patterns that attacked the fundamental forces holding energy beings together. For the first time in their existence, Flux entities discovered what it felt like to be torn apart at the subatomic level. Overlord Phoenix, the being responsible for the Serenity Massacre, was the first to die. His energy matrix unraveled like a spiderweb in a hurricane. His consciousness scattered across multiple dimensions before finally dissolving into nothing. His death scream echoed through quantum space, felt by every energy being in the galaxy. In 72 hours, the 3 great powers of the galaxy lost 60% of their military forces. More importantly, they lost their sense of invincibility. For thousands of years, they had ruled through technological superiority and the assumption that no one could challenge them. Now they faced an enemy that not only matched their technology, but exceeded it in ways they couldn't understand. The aftermath was swift. Velthari crystal ships that tried to flee were hunted down by human vessels that could appear and disappear at will. Krex bioships attempted to hide in asteroid fields, only to discover that human sensors could track biological signatures through any concealment. Flux entities tried to phase into different dimensions, but human weapons followed them through quantum space itself. On the former Krex hive world of Zextara, surviving insectoid leaders found themselves facing Captain Ji-Sun Lee as she accepted their surrender. The once proud warriors who had dismissed humans as inefficient biological units now stood with their heads bowed in defeat. "Your hive mind is broken," Captain Lee observed, noting how the Krex individuals were struggling to think for themselves. "Your collective consciousness can't adapt to individual decision-making." The lead Krex, a former tactical coordinator named Vextar, struggled to speak without the guidance of the hive. We do not understand. Your technology should not exist. Your weapons should not work. Your mistake was assuming that younger means weaker," Captain Lee replied. "You forgot that newcomers often see solutions that old powers miss." At the Velthari Crystal Gardens of Morthara, Admiral Wan Ho Song watched as surviving crystal beings attempted to repair their shattered empire. Without their massive dreadnoughts, the Velthari were just another minor species clinging to a few star systems. Former war leader Corian, his crystal body cracked and dim, approached under a flag of truce. "Human Admiral, we wish to discuss terms." "Terms?" Admiral Song repeated. "You massacred children because their parents tried to learn about energy physics. What terms do you think you deserve?" We were wrong about your species. We thought..." Corian's crystal segments flickered with what humans had learned to recognize as fear. "We thought courtesy meant weakness." "No," Admiral Song said quietly. "Courtesy meant we were giving you a chance to treat us with respect. You chose to interpret kindness as an invitation to commit atrocities." The conversation was being broadcast throughout human space, where millions of people watched their former oppressors beg for mercy. Mira Kim, daughter of the merchant captain killed by pirates the aliens had ignored, spoke for many humans when she said they had their chance to be civilized. They chose to be monsters instead. But humanity's response surprised the galaxy. Rather than seeking revenge or conquest, human forces focused on stabilization and protection. Admiral Byung-Ho Kang, now commanding occupation forces throughout former alien territory, established what became known as the Protection Protocols. "We're not here to rule you," he announced to representatives of the shattered alien civilizations. "We're here to make sure you never again mistake patience for weakness." Human ships began patrolling trade routes that had been plagued by piracy for centuries. The criminals who had operated under alien protection found themselves facing an enemy that couldn't be bribed, threatened, or ignored. Within weeks, interstellar commerce was safer than it had been in living memory. On worlds where the three great powers had exploited local populations, human administrators worked to establish fair governments. Species that had been enslaved or oppressed for generations suddenly found themselves protected by beings they had been taught to fear. Dr. Bo-Ra Lee, leading the new Scientific Cooperation Initiative, began sharing human technology with species that had been denied access to advanced science by their former rulers. "Knowledge should not be hoarded," she declared. "Discovery benefits everyone." The most significant change was in the Galactic Confederation itself. The organization that had supported the massacre at Serenity found itself restructured under human oversight. President Do-Hyun Shin addressed the reformed council with words that would define the new galactic order. For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by fear and the assumption that might makes right. 5 years had passed since the day the galaxy learned to fear humanity. Admiral Byung-ho Kang walked through the halls of New Nexus Station, the rebuilt heart of galactic government, and marveled at how much had changed. Where once alien species had been divided into rulers and subjects, now they worked together under human guidance to build something better. The station itself told the story of transformation. The old Nexus Prime had been destroyed during the final battles of Operation Silent Storm, its crystal and biometal structures too contaminated with the arrogance of the former powers. New Nexus was built by dozens of species working together, combining the best of their technologies under human direction. "Admiral, the morning briefing is ready," announced his aide, Lieutenant So-Young Park. She carried a tablet containing reports from across the galaxy, all of them telling the same story: peace, prosperity, and the gradual healing of wounds that had festered for centuries. The briefing room contained representatives from 47 different species, many of whom had never been allowed to participate in galactic government before. Captain Min-jun, Kim, now serving as diplomatic liaison, called the meeting to order. "First item, trade security," he announced. "Piracy incidents are down 97% from pre-war levels. The remaining criminal organizations are being systematically eliminated by joint human-alien patrols." Admiral Kang nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy's trade routes, once plagued by criminals operating under alien protection, were now safer than they had been in living memory. Human patrol ships worked alongside reformed security forces from dozens of species, creating a network of protection that spanned inhabited space. Second item, technological development. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee reports that the new research stations are exceeding expectations. The transformation of galactic science had been one of humanity's greatest achievements, where the old powers had hoarded knowledge and restricted research based on arbitrary decisions about species readiness. Humans had established open laboratories, where anyone could contribute to discovery. Dr. Hai-Jin Lee stood to address the assembly. "Our joint research into quantum mechanics has produced breakthrough discoveries that no single species could have achieved alone. The Altarian mathematical concepts, combined with Andromedan energy manipulation and human theoretical framework, have opened entirely new fields of study." She activated a holographic display showing research stations throughout the galaxy. "We now have collaborative facilities in every major sector. Former Velthari crystal technology is being used to build better computers. Reformed Krek's biological science is helping us develop medical treatments. Even surviving flux entities are contributing their energy expertise to peaceful projects." The display showed the fruits of this cooperation: terraforming projects that could transform dead worlds into gardens, medical technologies that could cure diseases that had plagued species for millennia, and energy systems that could power entire civilizations without environmental damage. "Third item," Captain Kim continued, "the integration of former enemy territories." This had been the most delicate challenge. The three great powers that had once ruled the galaxy were broken, their people scattered and demoralized. Humanity could have simply conquered their worlds and enslaved their populations. Instead, they had chosen a different path. Governor Jae-won Shin reported from the former Velthari core worlds. "Reconstruction is proceeding smoothly. Former crystal hierarchies are being replaced with democratic assemblies. Crystal beings are learning to make individual decisions rather than following ancient caste structures." It hadn't been easy. The Velthari had ruled through crystalline hierarchies for thousands of years, with each being's place in society determined by the perfection of their crystal matrix. Teaching them about individual worth and democratic participation had required patience and understanding. The former Empress Zethara has become an advocate for reform, Governor Shin added. Her experience during the war taught her that rigid hierarchies make species vulnerable to unexpected challenges. Similar transformations were happening throughout former enemy territory. The Kreks, freed from their hive mind collective, were discovering what it meant to think as individuals. Many found the experience terrifying at first, but human counselors helped them adapt to personal responsibility and choice. Administrator Yujin Song spoke from the former Kreks worlds. Individual Kreks are proving remarkably creative when freed from collective constraints. We're seeing innovations in biotechnology and social organization that the hive mind never could have achieved. The Flux Collective had been the most damaged by the war. Energy beings that had considered themselves immortal discovered they could be destroyed, and many of the survivors had retreated into isolation. But some had chosen to work with humans, contributing their understanding of energy manipulation to peaceful projects. Flux entities are helping design new power systems for colonial worlds, reported engineer Taeho Jung. Their ability to manipulate energy at the quantum level is proving invaluable for sustainable development. Admiral Kang listened to the reports with quiet satisfaction. The galaxy that humanity now protected was more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in centuries. But he knew that vigilance was still required. "Security update," he requested. Captain Sujin Bei, commanding the Rapid Response Fleet, stood to deliver her report. "No major threats detected. We've identified and eliminated 3 minor criminal organizations in the past month. Several species have requested assistance with natural disasters, which we've provided. The human military had evolved into something between a police force and a disaster relief organization. Their overwhelming technological superiority meant that no species could challenge them directly, so their primary role was protecting weaker civilizations from criminals, natural disasters, and their own worst impulses." "What about the memorial projects?" Admiral Kang asked. This question brought a moment of silence to the room. Captain Kyuri Song, the sole survivor of the Energy Weapons Lab on Research Station Serenity, had dedicated her life to ensuring that the lessons of the war were never forgotten. "The memorial at Serenity is complete," she reported. "It honors not just the humans who died there, but all the victims of the old power's cruelty over the centuries. We've also established education centers to teach young beings about the importance of treating others with respect." The Serenity Memorial had become a pilgrimage site for species throughout the galaxy. The simple monument bore the names of all who had died in the attack, including the 8-year-old girl who had asked her father about studying aliens on the morning she was killed. Below the names was a single phrase in every language of the galaxy. They died because someone decided they were inferior. "What about resistance movements?" Admiral Kang asked, though he already knew the answer. "Minimal and declining," reported Intelligence Coordinator Jinho Park. "Some die-hard supporters of the old regimes continue to operate in remote systems, but they have no popular support. Most citizens of former enemy worlds prefer human protection to their old rulers' oppression." This had surprised many human leaders. They had expected more resistance to their governance, more resentment from species that had been defeated in war. Instead, they found that most aliens were grateful to be free from the tyranny of the 3 great powers. A representative from the former Velthari territories, Crystal Singer Morthal, stood to address the assembly. "Admiral Kong, I speak for many when I say that humanity has proven to be more generous in victory than our former rulers ever were in peace. You could have enslaved us or destroyed us. Instead, you taught us to be better than we were." Similar sentiments came from other representatives. The Kreks delegate, individual thinker Zeknara, spoke haltingly but with obvious sincerity. "Humans showed us that thinking for ourselves makes us stronger, not weaker. The hive mind taught us that questioning orders was dangerous. You taught us that asking questions leads to discovery." The meeting continued with reports from across the galaxy. New species were being welcomed into the galactic community with the same warmth that had been denied to humanity years before. Trade was flourishing under human protection. Scientific advancement was accelerating as knowledge was shared freely, But Admiral Kang knew that the real test of humanity's leadership wasn't in the statistics or reports. It was in the small moments that showed how much had changed. After the meeting, he walked to the station's observation deck and watched ships from dozens of species docking peacefully together. A Velthari crystal vessel shared berthing space with a reformed Krex bioship. Former enemies worked side by side, protected by human patrols that ensured no one could threaten the peace. Dr. Hanul Jeon joined him at the observation window. She had been the scientist who developed the quantum disruptors that broke the galaxy's old powers. Now she led research into technologies that could heal worlds damaged by centuries of exploitation. "Any regrets, Admiral?" she asked. Kang considered the question. "About the war? No. They chose to murder children to make a point about superiority. We simply showed them the consequences of that choice. What about afterward? Some people think we should have been harsher with the defeated powers. Those people forget that our goal was never conquest.